So this is the photograph that I received. So what do you think we need to do to it? Anybody?
More contrast in the sky.
Maybe do something with the sky. What else?
Lighten the shadows a little bit.
Lightning and
Contrast.
shadows, certainly. Anything else?
It looks kind of blurry to me. I don't know if that's my computer or what.
No, it's a little blurry.
Little perspective.
Yeah, we got some moving of the buildings, which is what tends to bother me the most in it. So you can see that if you come out here and put, I grabbed the toolbar with my cursor and I just dragged it over and lined it up with that post. I'll take my magnifying glass and have a look. And I'm sure I'm not over that. So that one looked like that. I'm going to bring another toolbar over here and lay it on this one. And then I'll bring another over here. I'm going to lay it on this mullion here.
Huh.
That's why I wanted you to work on this picture, Richard, because I knew buildings, I didn't know how to do things.
Yeah, well, we're going to do that. So if we look at this right here, let's move back out again. We can see, especially this one here, that the parallax is moving us off, and that becomes something that is very noticeable. There's also a change, a switch in here on this line, but not as much, and then again, a little bit less there. So what I did was try to examine what those are, but before I did that, so everybody kind of remember what I did here? So I'm gonna click up here on the move tool, and I can grab them and I can just take them out of the way. I could also hit Control H and hide them all, and then hit Control H to bring them back again. But it looks like there's a little bowing that occurs out in here, and something doesn't quite seem copacetic here, but I'm not sure what it is. So the first thing I did, because this came in as a JPEG, is I ran it through the DxO program so that it would make the adjustments to correct the camera lens. And I did that because I wanted to play and see how it worked. And you have that same ability to do that in Camera Raw, to bring in the camera that you've used, and it'll sense it and it'll make up for deficits in the lens and the camera itself. And I also use something here called neutral filters. So neutral filters is one of the new filters that we've got in it. And if you come down here, you've got some creative things, and one of them is JPEG artifacts removal. I think this is probably still not ready for prime time. I didn't see that it made a lot of difference, but I wanted you to be aware of it, so I did run that on it.
I'll have to put it in $2-3.
Christine, could you mute your,
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. That's my dad with his big mouth.
Richard,
Yes,
what would JPEG artifact look like?
we'll look at it here in a couple minutes.
Okay,
I'll
great,
be
thanks.
able to show you.
Okay, great.
But it's here on the filter menu. It's right here, neutral filters. And that acts as a whole set of new ones that Adobe's put out that you should spend some time playing with. So what does a JPEG artifact look like? Go back to the background and let's we're only getting about 300-400%. Okay, now you see the noise in here. We're up at 300%, so this has been cleaned up pretty nicely. See this kind of splush in here?
No,
No? Well,
there's a
okay.
sploosh. There's a sploosh,
It's a
a line.
So you see this blotchiness right
Yeah.
in here?
Yeah.
And this kind of line looks like a
Yeah.
pattern added
Yeah.
onto it.
Yeah, I
That's a
see that.
JPEG artifact. And that
Okay.
came from when the computer reduced the size of the photograph down. And it
But-
did it
but-
when she took it from the camera raw image that she had and made it into a JPEG so she could send it to me.
But you're at, oh, you're at 100% now.
I'm at
or-
500% right now so that you can see it.
Do we need to worry about that?
No, not normally.
Okay,
But when you make the conversion, sometimes you'll get things that are off,
okay,
jumped
okay.
around. And
all right,
this picture was not terribly bad.
okay.
So, it wasn't something that I wanted to spend a lot of time teaching you how to use.
Yeah, thank you.
But what we can see here now is that we do have artifacts in here.
Yeah, I see
Artifacts
those.
is just something that's left over from when they made it. And we have a lot of noise
Yeah,
that was in there. So when I brought it through the thing, it cleaned up some of that. Not a whole lot, I mean, just a little bit less noise. Easy, easy. So that's what's going on here. Bring it back to fifth screen. So what I did is I dragged over those lines again, and I tried to determine how much they were off. And so these red arrows here are the breakdown of the change between vertical and what the building was. So you can see closer us, the shift is bigger, and farther away it's not. It's all right. Okay, so what did I do? I fixed this. So how did I fix it? What I did is I made a copy with Command Shift Control and the letter E. So now I have, and this is rasterized. It's already been rasterized in that conversion. See, it's already grayed out. So now I have the picture, and all it is now is one that has had the lens correction fixed and a little bit of the noise reduced. So that's there. And there's the move that I want to have. So what I'm going to do, fix this, is I'm going over here to edit, transform, then I'm going to use skew. And I'm going to take the skew and I'm going to move the image that way, move it that way. Okay, so that's where I'm moving it right there. So get back up here, back on this one, image. That's one, skew. There you go. So you can see all it is the skew, and I moved it up. And because it's proportional, in this case, I thought that all by itself straightened those things up. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. So that's the simplest way to do it. We have other tools that'll do it, but I find for most of these kinds of things that kind of an overall movement gives me good control. Any questions about that?
Richard?
I have a
Yes.
question, Richard. Like sometimes what I've done on some is in Camera Raw, they have the skew, the X to Y and whatever.
Yep.
Can you do it there?
Well,
I
you
mean-
can, except I found that when I try to skew the X and the Y, it does it from both sides, and this picture didn't need it on both sides. So
Okay.
let's take a look at that. We turn this one on. Camera on, quickly. And by the way, this is the great use of a smart filter. So And by the way, when I brought it in with the smart filter, I did do a little bit of work on it. I raised the shadows a little bit universally. And I moved the white point and the black point to get a fuller range. I didn't mess with the saturation. Yeah. So the control here is the geometry. And the one she's talking about is this one here. So I can tilt the picture, see how I'm tilting it there to get it straight. But it's doing it on both sides uniformly. Which sometimes will solve the problem for you and it works great, but sometimes it won't. So you can move that way, you can move it horizontally. So we could have changed how the aspect ratio worked. Let's do it. Take this one and we'll move it here, and then we're going to move it horizontally. Maybe like that. Rotate it. I don't think I need to do that, but you could straighten it here if you wanted to. Use these tools up in here to try and do that same procedure. But that's how that tool works, and that's in Camera Raw. So is there advantage to using Camera Raw rather than doing it in Photoshop? Well, sure, because Camera Raw is non-destructive, which means you can get your pixels back. If I do it in Photoshop, I've made a destructive edit, which does not give me that room to go back. Okay?
Richard,
Yes.
what about the difference between the transform section in Lightroom? From my real estate shooting, I would have gone there immediately because I'm good at Lightroom, hit the transform button and taken care of the skew and the angle and so on. Now I realize it does the whole picture, it doesn't do just one side or the other, but is the net result pretty much the same?
That result is whatever it is you want them to be. But the command that I just showed you in Adobe Camera Raw is exactly the same as the command you have in Lightroom. It's the same engine that's doing those two things.
Okay, thank
That
you.
makes sense? Okay, so we've taken care of the parallax that's good enough for government work. Does that mean it's perfect? No, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but it looks pretty good. So what's the next most troublesome thing? And I'm going to suggest, by the way, that that's your hierarchy for working at. You fix what is nastiest first, and then you fix that, and then you fix the next most troublesome thing, and you work your way down the list until it's no longer worth the effort. So what next, do you think?
There's some yellow and red and blue stuff at the very end of the sidewalk. I
Down
find
here?
that kind of I find that kind of distracting.
Yeah, but that might be what the picture's about.
That
Okay.
was one of my questions. Should that be highlighted a little more to show what's down at the end?
Well, let's think again. These, by the way, are now I'm going to zoom back out. So I'm going to push down the Option or the Alt command, and then that'll change my magnifying glass from a plus to a minus. I'm just going to back out a little bit. So it seems to me, whereas I think this is important, I think these three people are probably more important.
Yeah.
Because they're people. And that's kind of the rubric. But I'm thinking that I'm kind of upset about
The reflections.
the reflections.
I am too.
Yeah, I'm kind of upset about the reflections. So we've got a couple of problems here. We got the fact that these windows are darker, and I like to brighten that up. But I don't like the reflections, so let's move all the way out. Okay, now the difference between fit screen and fill screen is that fit screen takes the whole picture and brings it inside the window, and fill screen takes it usually from side to side. So you sacrifice looking at the height, but you can see the whole picture across the width of it. So I'm looking at this, and I am really bothered by this reflection here. Do you see that?
Mhm.
And in a perfect world, You would have put a polarizer on top of your lens and you wouldn't have had that. But, you're walking around, who's got time? So how do we fix that? There's a couple of ways we can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on this layer. This is the one now that I have fixed the loppiness of the buildings. And what I'm going to do is work on the, before I do that, though, let me just pull back a little bit. If we look at this thing, we have some leading lines that are built in. So, and the big strong ones are here in the sidewalk, right? They go like this. So that's leading me down to whatever this thing is, Christine. I have another set of leading lines that runs like this, and I might have a leading line that doesn't work that runs this way. See it? How this crooks down? Now, it's not because the building crooks back. See it down here?
Mhm.
But if I was just looking at it, let me just make a new layer here. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to, use the pool. Because I could say that it seems to me, okay, now what I do, I just drew a line on the building where I could. And what I want to do is extend that line. The easiest way to do that is to duplicate the layer. I think I'm going to add standard for it. Okay, and I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to grab that duplicated line that I just had. You see how you just stretch it across? Do that?
Mhm.
Now I have that line longer. I can see how much that actually moves back. I can do the same down here if I wanted to see how how this perspective works, because we have a vanishing point and it's very strong, and I can use that same procedure to draw in the vanishing point. So here's the line of the top piece comes down to there. This is the line of that piece of the sidewalk. And this is the line from that piece of the sidewalk. And what that tells me is that the vanishing point is right there on those people. See that?
Mhm.
So that means that's an important spot. The picture does revolve around that. That's where our eyes naturally lead. We can also see that there's another one, another line. Paint that runs from about where his eyes are, through his eyes. But that's pretty much the line, once again, going to the vanishing point of their head heights. So that's all working just like they taught us in grade school how it was supposed to. Now, for those of you who haven't learned this trick, I'm going to go up here to my histories, and I'm going to move back through the work that I've done to where I did the free transform. Let's take it to there. And now I'm going to, let's see. All right, so there we are again. And what we want to do is work on these things. So the trick here, I think, is to decide what's going on. And what's going on mostly is because we can see the shift of the color between these darker colors and this light reflection. And we can also see the square geometric line, which alerts us in our reptilian brain that that's not right. So the easiest way to fix this is to paint it out. So I'm on a new layer. I'm going to use the paintbrush. I'm going to make it as soft as I can and as large as I think I can get away with. Okay, so now I have a larger soft brush. You want to use the largest, softest brush you can get away with because it tends to disappear and blend in easier. If you use a small brush, the demarcation between what you did and what you didn't do is pretty strong. So using a large one helps disguise that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and get rid of this color patch. And what I'm going to do now is I have the brush, I'm on the blank layer. I'm going to come over here next to where this thing is. I'm going to press down the Alt or Option key, and that'll turn my paint brusher into my eyedropper. And I'm going to see, if you look down at the domino squares, the top one's blue. So I've held down the alternate brush to make that my eyedropper. I'm going to click on it. Notice it turned to that shade of black. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that black in. I'm going to probably bring this down. And I'm just going to try and bring that in. Put down my Alt key again for this. That's that color. I'm going to do this kind of fast so we can spend all night here. But here, 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 here. Do I have to get it all? No, I don't have to. I just need to get enough that it fools you to think that it's not there. Okay, so I've gotten most of that. And if I go, I get the same problem over here, so I click on that. So grab a little bit. All right, so all I've done is painted it. We just, I'll hold down the Alt or the Option key. I'm just going to click on this layer. So that's what I just painted in. And I chose the colors from the area that was right around it. So the next trick to this is to blur them to try and hide the edges even more. So I'm going to come up here to filter and blur, Gaussian blur. And you want to play with it. I take the blur up too much. I just want to blur it so there disguise any hard edges. About in there, should do it. And then, oh, look at that. See what happened here? I painted over my bone in. Because I'm on this layer now, all I have to do now is take my eraser tool and just erase that. Excuse me. Grandchildren will allow you to share with you so much, including their poets. So I'm going to bring down my opacity so that it just disguises what I did. And that pretty well does it. I come back out here and go to fifth screen. See how it went away? So that's the one I just did now with you. This is the one I did before. So the next issue would be how I want to have this thing show up. And I think looking at it, that I'd like these windows to be a little brighter, because if I was standing there, my eyes would adjust and I'd be able to see that, which is the difference between our eyes and the cameras. And have I lost you? Or are you all still there?
We're good. I'm good.
Okay,
Still
so-
here.
Yep, sometimes I just get a little nervous. So what I'm going to do is try and lighten the sidewalk a little bit. I'm going to do that with a curves adjustment tool first. And I'm going to use this slider here. I'm going to grab the sidewalk and I'm just going to try and lighten the sidewalk a little bit. because I'd like a little distinction between the building and the sidewalk, I think. So I just lightened that. And then what I want to do is.
Can you go through that again, Richard? How
Sure,
did you, yeah.
sure.
Where was that tool from?
in the
Well,
curves.
I'll do both. Let me just get rid of it.
Curves adjustment.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh.
Richard, would it not lighten some of the building too? Because it's
Yeah.
sort of very similar.
Yeah, but let's look at it. So I'm just looking at the picture now. You know, from my artistic eye. What's this? Let's go back. Donna, what's the subject of the picture?
For me, it was, I liked how the buildings went and I liked the guy in it walking down the street. It was like a street scene of, you know, what the buildings and the people.
Right. So what we'd like to do is have that motion, which is the sidewalk and the man, stand out a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And we would do that by lightening both of those objects so that the sidewalk reads different from the building. And the man pops away from the building a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm on my uppermost layer. I'm going to come down here to the bottom and I'm going to pick an adjustment layer. And I'm going to use curves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten the sidewalk. Because I want to lighten the colors in the sidewalk or these tones, I'm just going to pick them and just lighten them here. Okay. Now that lightened everything in the image. Let's turn that on and off. So the building got lighter, the man got lighter, the sky got lighter. See that?
Mhm.
And that's not what I want is to have the man and the sidewalk lighter, but all the rest of this to remain the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the quick selection tool. And I'm going to make my figure a little bit bigger. And I'm going to have it try and select the sidewalk. See how it's selecting it all there? So all I did was drag it around and said, these items here, I want you to make in my selection. I'm going to get rid of this mask. Just so I can start fresh. Now, this is my selection. I'm going to come down here and hit the masking tool, click it up. So it's going to block out everything else and it's only going to lighten these parts that are here. So let's go back here and look at this. So if I hold down the shift key and hit on the mask, it turns it off. Okay, so I retain what my building looked like. You see that?
Mhm.
Now I can go through here and refine this mask. If that was shift and hitting on the mask to turn it on and off. That's how I did that. So I hit the Alt key, Option key, and click on the mask. Now I see the mask. Okay, now what do I do here? I put a rubylith on top of it. So how did I do that? I have a mask in place. I'm going to use the backslash key. That's the one that's just above your enter key next to the bracket keys. And if I press that down, it'll take the part that I have being black and it will put it on as a rubylith or a red mask for me to look at. Isn't that clever?
Mhm.
I'm going to zip down in here and say, well, gee, I wanted the whole man to be open. So what I'm going to do now is on this mask, I'm going to paint with black. No, I'm going to paint with white. I'm going to paint with white so that this can be exposed. I'm going to use my brush. Normally I would do this at a smaller flow. But just come in here. Okay, for our purposes, let's put it all the way up. I'm just going to bring it up, still using a soft brush. Now, most of us have been taught when we're creating masks that we have to be really, really precise. I think we need to get over that because most of the time we're not going to see the difference. There are cases where it's important. So let me come in here a little bit closer. Well, so that's got him pretty well. I could make the side of his jacket blend in a little bit less. There we go. And I think I'd like to see this guy spacing here. Why though? Because it's another person. I think he's part of the story. Maybe not. I'm going to take my left bracket key and make my brush smaller. Okay, so I got rid of him. But looking at this, I don't think these pots down here are part of the story that I want to tell. So I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to use this little two-sided arrow key to flip what's forward and backwards. So now my black is my primary color. And I'm going to paint out this pot. So do I paint it out? No, all I did was not brighten it. Why did I not brighten it? Because I'd like to get some dimensionality between these objects to help make it look less flat. When we have even light across things, things tend to look light, flat, and lifeless and artificial. So I'm looking here, and I probably want this girl to show too. So I'm going to change my brush back to white. And I'm going to do her. Now, she's wearing black, so I don't have to be too careful about that. I didn't know you're hanging out in the goth part of me. Kind of like the motor scooter. I don't think I need these pots, so I'm going to use my selection tool. I use the polygonal lasso tool. It's my favorite of these tools. And I'm just going to come in here and draw. And like all things, you can be as precise or as sloppy as you want to be. Okay, so I want those to be black. I'm going to change my color to black. And I'm going to use my paint bucket tool. Right? I'm just going to pop it there, and that's put that all in shadow. So let's go ahead and look at the screen. So that all look down here. There's this thing popping out. So let's go down and look at that. I'm going to hit Command Control D to deselect. I'm going to Command A to select everything. I'm going to use my black brush. I'm going to paint over this thing. And I'm going to paint over this thing. Now, did I need to? Yeah, probably not. You probably wouldn't have seen that. But as long as I'm here, I'm not as. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to fit screen. I'm going to go ahead and push the backslash key. Once again, that's the one that's under the line. So you take the delete key, and the next key down is the backslash key. I'm going to click that, and that turns that off. So what we have here now is that we've lightened. See that?
Mhm.
We've lightened the sidewalk, and we've lightened the people. Now we say, well, gee, I think that's too much. Then we can come up here to our opacity control and bring that down. See that? We can fine adjust what we want it to be.
Hey,
So,
Richard,
yeah.
a quick question on selections. Oftentimes when I'm doing like that last selection you did, I lose track of the beginning, then I need to close the selection. Is there an easy way to close it or an easy way to find the end?
Hit enter. Just hit enter.
Just enter.
Yeah, let's go ahead and redo that. I'm going to select, I'm going to deselect, and use what I'm going to click here, 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 and now I'm just gonna hit enter.
Oh,
Amazing.
it is. Thank you, Terry.
I'm glad you asked me one I could answer. Okay, so,
Richard, I would be, if I was thinking to do the same thing, I either use Dodge and Burn, or I might go into Camera Raw and click on the mask and then do a brush, click on the brush function of the mask and then just paint it in with a brush versus this way. Do you feel this is better to do this mask out of the sidewalk and the man? And
well,
do you know what I
I
mean?
think I get a more control.
Do you?
the- see, because now I've picked it all, and it doesn't depend on how many times I've gone over it or
Yeah.
where not picked. Because I'm putting in all one color at a time, and it's being handled by the curve. And let's go back and look at that for a second. Here's the curve.
It's the curve that's
Oh, I
handling
think I
it.
really wanted that to be a lot brighter. Well, I can make it a lot brighter here.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
It's-
It's a
now
lot
it
more
looks-
even.
Now it looks like a concrete. So boy, that's kind of
Yeah,
so.
okay. So that's the reason for using that. Select it and mask it
Yeah, so that's
and then work in that with the curves.
yeah, that's kind of why I gone this
Yeah, okay.
architectural way.
Yep.
If I was working on somebody's face,
Then you
or,
might.
or the woods or something like that, where I want it to
Mhm.
kind of blend from one to the other, then the brush style might be tempting. But I'm going to
Okay,
use exactly the same technique to fix these windows.
okay.
It has to do with how our cameras are different than our eyes. If we were walking down this street, our eyes would adjust to look through the darkness of these windows, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But our cameras can't do that. I mean, they're marvelous, but they are limited. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in again and say, what do I think? How bright do I think that would be? So I'm going to create another curves adjustment layer down here to this bottom half circle. Click on it. Come up here to curves. And what I want to do is I want to lighten this so that it looks more like what I think my eye would have seen. And I can just grab a point here and I can just up it. And I'm guessing that might be a little bit more than I want, but maybe. So now I've lightened these windows. Of course, I've lightened everything on the picture, but it's only the windows that I'm interested in
Yeah,
right now. By the way, this is why we took the reflection out first,
yeah, gotcha.
because we would have brightened the
Yeah,
reflection
yeah,
again,
of
and we would have had a
course.
whole other problem to work with.
Yeah.
So we took the reflection out back then. Now we're here, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to get rid of this layer mask.
Right.
Delete layer mask. I've just got the curve on here, and I'm going to take my polygonal selection tool because that's my go-to on my life, and I'm going to make another polygon. And close that one. And look up here. I've got these choices. See, I've got it right now as a single. I'm going to hit this here to add. This little domino picture here. Click on that. And I'm going to add this one.
Huh.
This one.
So holding down the shift key wouldn't add it, would it, Richard?
Yeah, probably. We'll try it here in a second. Let me just get this in there. So I use that enter key. And look, I screwed up here. See this?
Yeah.
Busy listening rather than doing. So I'm going to come up here and let me put it back here to single and see if that works. I'm going to hit the shift key. Yep, it did it. So you can do the shift key also. And looking at this thing, yeah. I would probably lighten, this one looks pretty white, but I would probably lighten this one also. So I'm going to hit the shift key again. Click, 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 click. Enter. So I've got these three window panes selected. Now, because they're selected, I'm going to hit the mask button. That's this one that looks like a rectangle with a circle in it. gonna click on that and notice that it made a mask with just the parts we did. So all this section here did was open up those windows. So there they've been lightened, there they've been dark. So let's go back here, look at our picture again. Hit screen. Does that look too light?
No, it's better light, I think.
I think it looks more natural too. You could
I
go
like
down
it
this as
better
far
light.
as you wanted to.
It blends in with the whole image better,
Okay,
I think.
I think so too. All right, so we've done that. So looking at thing, what's the next most troublesome thing?
Blue sky.
The sky.
Now, Richard, would you camouflage the red in that third window, I guess I'll call it? Just see how there's a
Dot,
red,
right?
yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do that. Let's go ahead and do it. Up here. Now layers are cheap. It's like film. So until you get up around 100, just go ahead and add them as you need them. That way you can change them. So let's walk down here. Let's look at this window. And we've got a couple. We could just take them out, which is probably what I would be inclined to do.
Like just clone them out? Just
I'm
clone
sorry?
it out? Clone it out?
Yeah, so let's do that. I'm on here. We'll take my clone tool,
Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah, clone it
Yeah.
out.
open it up a little bit. Once again, we want it to be soft. And as
Mm.
as we think we can get away with. Why? We do that because you can't see the edges. Let me just show you up here, for example. I'm going to make it small. It's still soft, but I'm going to make it small. And I'm going to clone this color to there. See how that edge is refined? It shows that it blocked out.
Yeah,
And of course, that was enough to make sure that it fell the way I wanted it to. So we're going to come back down here. We've got our windows, I think, up bigger. I'm going to pick something close to it, probably about here. Alt right here.
Use the clone tool.
Yeah, you're in brush.
Yeah, that would probably make life better. Okay, so I want to sample the layer I'm on and what's below it. Right?
yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to do it at 100% normal. That works fine. So I'm going to click. Make it bigger. Click it here. There. Click it there. Now, what happened there?
It moved.
What happened
It
is
copied.
that I cloned it. I cloned it on itself.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use my history brush here. I'm going to go back one step. So now it's where it was at. Okay. So I got a little bit left up here. See it? So I'm going to hit down my Alt key, click here. I'm going to click here. I'll click right here. So that took care of that pretty well. I think I'd leave the American flag out.
Yeah, I agree.
This doesn't come out strong enough for
Me
it to
too.
offend me.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
And
But I
then
think-
there's that line right above that window that you just cloned, Richard. Is
Oh,
that,
with the reflection.
This one
no,
here,
up further up, higher up, right there.
yeah,
That looks like some wire or something.
yeah. You want it gone?
Yeah. I would.
Okay. Let's see, where am I gonna do it?
You
I'm
could
gonna,
do it.
I'm gonna bring it down here so that I'm not messing with these layers up here for now. So just help me remember what I turned on. So this is kind of a neat one. We've got a bunch of things here. So let's zoom in on this. Now, the problem here is, will anybody see it? And the answer is probably not. But we can take this, we can make a new layer, black ink. I'm going to take my brush tool. there's a couple of ways to do this. One is you could just do a clone stamp and bring it in to try and get rid of it. Or,
Copied it again.
Yeah.
or, let me move back a step. The kind of technique that I'm liking a lot.
Healing brush.
What I did one time, Richard, with something that was, and it went across a couple things that I didn't want to get rid of, was I took your little polygonal or whatever and went through the wire, and then I cloned from that?
Then you clone from next to it into that space.
Yes, and I marked exactly real close so that it would pick up the stuff on either side, because both sides were a little different.
Yeah, well, I can also do it this way. I've shown you this technique before, but let me do it again. I'm on a blank layer. I'm using the paintbrush. I'm using it small. Put it there. Hold down the shift key. So all I'm doing now is painting this wire. So are you seeing all these tools I'm teaching you?
Yeah, I love it.
You know, to make this straight line, I'm clicking at the beginning, I'm holding down the shift key and going to the end. So what I've done now is I've covered all those wires with a black line, right? Then I'm going to hit the command key and I'm going to click on this layer that I have that black line on. And look, see how it made us see the marching ants? It selected it.
Uh-huh.
All right. So now I can turn that layer off. I'm going to click on my picture below that has the image on it.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to use content aware fill.
Yeah, that's what I used when I did the wire
Content aware
before.
fill. And what it does is it grabs the images from around those places. See the preview here?
Mhm.
So there it is. And I'm going to use Command H hide to hide it. So it got out more, maybe not necessarily everything that I wanted, but a lot of it. So you can go back. I probably should have made the brush a little bit bigger. I could also use my clone heal
Polygonal.
tool and just line on that. Okay, just bringing that stuff out and just picking stuff around it. So using the spot heal brush here, which is really a very powerful tool.
I think I would have just used that polygonal tool.
Well, yeah,
I'm kind of lazy.
and, people keep wanting me to show them different ways to do stuff. And to be very honest with you, when I was doing this picture earlier, I didn't even see this one. Okay, so we've done that. It's on its own layer right here. Let's just call it wire. Okay, so we had that on. Yeah. So let me go back up here. Fit screen. Okay, so that's gone. So the sky was the next problem. So the way I would suggest we hit the sky, I'm going to do it in 2 steps. I'm going to make a stamped copy here. So that's Command Shift Control and the letter E. I better turn the layer off so I can have Command Shift Control. So now I have a layer here. This incorporated everything I've done in the back. And what I want to do is darken this sky, but I don't want to put in a different sky. I want to use this sky. So what I'm going to do is on this layer. I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna come up here to filter. I'm going to use camera raw. So what can I do in camera raw filter? Is I can darken the sky. So I'm getting some of these cirrus clouds in here now. And some color, and I think for our purposes, that's probably okay. So I'll hit okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I hate it when I'm showing off and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's pretend it did work.
That because you're so far down the layers, Richard, that, is there a layer up above that's,
Oh, I've got this out of above. That's where you get most stuff.
is there more stuff up above or no?
Shouldn't be, but this is what I did. I used the camera raw filter, and I
Right.
darkened the whole picture. And then I made a mask. Right here, and I used the sky selection to get this.
Mhm.
And what happened is it picked most of the sky very nicely, but it missed the sky that's down in here. You see it?
Yeah.
So what I did is I accepted that, then I duplicated this layer. And I painted this one. And I'm going to deselect. So I've got that, I put in that darker sky. And then I put a black mask on it. So that's this one here. And I'm only looking now to paint white on these sections down in here to darken them. And I used the blend if statement to lower it down so it only put the color in the places that did not have a black base on it. So this is the blend if, which means I'm only putting that color in here where it was not light and dark. So that gave me my entire sky darkened up. All right. We're almost there. How are you liking the picture so far?
Good.
Mhm.
Okay, so
And
the
I
next
think
thing,
you've used every tool that I've seen you show, I think, to do this one picture. So it's really good.
Nice image,
So-
Donna.
Richard, do you like the reflection of the truck there? Do you want to get rid of that or not?
it doesn't bother me. It's a street scene. So I think it adds, but we're gonna look at that here in a second yet, because we can use
Okay.
another tool. But let me do another one. In reality, if I was standing here to get the feeling of dimension, some things closer to me would be sharp and some things farther away would be dull. So what I did next is sharpen the tree. See that?
Mm.
I gave you a tool to do this, but I'm going to show you how to do it, in the real world. I'm going to do another Command Control E. So now I have that same picture. We put all these off. I've got that same picture now on top. So I've got that same thing here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to image adjustments. I'm going to desaturate it. Then I'm going to put high pass filter on it. And I'm going to make it pretty sharp. Yeah. Okay, so now I have a high pass filter that's sharp. I'm going to change my blend mode. Yeah, either to soft light or hard light. I tend to like soft light for most things better, but I'll use hard light this time. So now I have the image sharpened up a lot. I'm going to hit alternate and the masking tool. So now I have a black mask. And then I'm going to use a white brush. I'm going to use a white brush. Still using a soft medium to replace that. So and now I'm going to paint with white. This is making this a little crunchy, but it is sharper. It's pretty quick. That's good. Okay, so now I've sharpened that up. And like so, see how the tree sharpened up and popped a little bit? Assuming so you can see it better. Cool. So, okay, so
Why just the tree and not other elements?
um,
Yeah.
well, because I'm trying to get some dimension in there. I thought the building was probably sharp enough. So I wanted the tree to make it as something that your eye could focus on with the man. So you've got the man and then the tree and then things get softer to the background.
Okay.
So that was my reason for doing it. So the next issue.
Richard, before you go on, what was the theory behind desaturating?
I only desaturated because I'm only interested in a black and white image to make the mask. So I'm just getting rid of the color information so it doesn't have any impact on it.
Thanks.
You can do it the other way. It's just that sometimes when you're doing it and the color becomes an issue, it just gets that out of the way. So the next issue now is to talk about what's the picture about. And I'm thinking the picture is about this stuff down in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my lasso tool and I'm going to say, I think this image is probably about that. Okay? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another curves adjustment tool. And I'm going to lighten that. About like so, like I'm making a spotlight. So I put a spotlight on this. The only problem is that I've got this really hard line here, so it's not very subtle. So I'm going to take that mask. I'm going to use filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to make it very blurry. I usually make it up to being some relationship to the lens. I think you're using a Nikon 750, Donna?
I had a DA10 and yeah, I can't, well, I'm not sure which lens I had on there.
The picture said it was a 750 with a
Okay, then it was my
32. The
Yeah,
300.
with
So,
my D5200 and probably with the 70-300 lens.
yeah, so I'm gonna bring in here, probably put in about a
Or-
blur of, yeah. Probably 220, okay. So now by doing that blur on there, what happened is that edge disappeared. And that should have subtly brought your eye into this part of the picture. So what I'm gonna do now is just do exactly the opposite, because this is what I want you to see. And this up here is not so important to me. I'm gonna take another lasso tool. I'm gonna say, you know, this part out here is, to my mind, pretty irrelevant. So I'm going to put another curves adjustment layer on that. And this one I'm going to make darker. Maybe like there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the mask, click on the mask, hit Command I to invert it. So now this part is darker and this part is lighter, and I still have that bloody line. So I'm going to use the filter, and I'm going to use the same Gaussian blur. So that made that transition go away. So it goes from dark to middle color to bright, what's going on. So I have, in fact, to my mind, done this photograph. So the last thing here that I would do is
Richard,
try and say,
that Gaussian blur that you just did,
Yep.
it didn't blur the photo, it blurred the curves layer. Is that what it did?
yeah, let's go look back here. I'm on the curves layer now. So if I hit the Command Bango, right here. See how the edge of the mask is now done soft?
Sure, okay. So it didn't blur the photo, it just,
No,
to me,
'cause I
that
was
just
on
blows
the
my
mask.
mind. I've never done that before, and that's like mind blowing. Okay,
Okay, yeah, I like this technique rather than putting in one of the canned vignettes, because one, I have no control and they're not very natural.
God, that's
So-
crazy.
So I've done this and I'm saying, okay, I have, to my mind, pretty much fixed the picture. I've got the eye leading down to this thing down here. It's brighter in here. I've got people walking in that direction, got leading lines. I've got some red down here to help draw your attention. But I'm thinking that the part of the image to me that's important is down here. But I don't really care about this up in here. So I would thinking as the last step is that I would crop it like this. So this is a square crop. And it shows me that I'm downtown. I still have the building here on top. I still have all of the elements. I have the windows and the reflections, but now we're focused more on what you were drawn to in the picture, which is the man walking down the street.
You almost put him on the thirds line.
All right. Click on the crop tool. And I'm gonna just put this crop here. I've got a thing up here with some tools. And I've got a bunch of those crops right in there that I can lay those over and see what I'm doing. And you see he's pretty close to being on the third line right now.
Yeah.
Could I make it more so? Yeah. And you could here. You could do it that way. And one of the things that I have found is that if I wait till a little bit farther into the image to do my cropping, I have the flexibility because I've made my corrections across the entire picture. Well, think about that for a second. I would have first and then made all of my adjustments. Oh, I need to make it a rectangle rather than a square. Then I'd have this border on the edge that none of my corrections would be on, which just angers the living out of me. But this works up nicely. This column is right on the line of the thirds. He is right on the line of the thirds. I think you have a pretty picture. I'm gonna go ahead and hit enter.
It's such an interesting idea, Richard, because you often hear, well, the first thing you do is crop.
Yeah.
And then you go forward. So it's a really interesting idea.
Well, thank you. I tried on this one, I have those grids that I made up that I've shared with you in the past and put them on, and none of them really seem to sing with this picture, other than the rule of thirds.
Yeah, yeah.
It worked out really well. And once again, these are all guidelines. None of them are hard and fast. We're just trying to
No,
lock
but
into,
they're helpful.
interlock.
I read it.
Go ahead. Did I lose you?
Oh, no, I just read an interesting article today about, it's from a lady in Canada, digital photography or something. And she talked about balance in an image in terms of composition.
Mhm.
And it's a concept that I really hadn't thought a lot about, and it's balancing vertically and horizontally and symmetrically.
Well, think about this. When we were little, and if you were lucky enough to have a fireplace, and we were learning about how things go, all of us went and put the clock on the mantle right in the middle,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And it was balanced.
Boom.
And then somebody trusted us for a few minutes with our mother's candlesticks, and we put the clock in the middle and
And
the
the two
candlesticks on both sides.
Yeah,
And we had a balanced picture.
we did.
And then you probably dated somebody more sophisticated than you, and you came home and you put the clock on one side and the two candlesticks on
It's
the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
yeah,
it was balanced.
yeah.
And then you probably went away to school and you put the clock behind the couch. And you just had the candlestick off to the side because the clock was old fashioned and it embarrassed
Right.
you. But the two candlesticks balanced the negative space on the other side of the fireplace, right?
That's good. Yep.
That's the process that we go through as we become more sophisticated.
Yeah.
So if you've got news on your iPad, you've noticed probably that the royals and the Speaker of the House have a brooch on one side of their jackets, but not on the other. That's because somebody more sophisticated than them taught them that we can have this asymmetrical balance. And it draws our attention to something.
Mm,
And it's balanced by the weight of the other thing. So in the picture we were just working on, the sky and the building to the side was part of our balance. And the man who was brighter, and because we
Yeah.
liked him and I'd taken the
Yeah.
noise out of his jacket, became enough weight to balance all the rest of the picture.
Yeah.
When we had that huge picture, the weight of the negative space was so much that the man could not pull it out of that conundrum.
You're absolutely right. And it's,
That's part of why I chose to sharpen the tree,
yeah.
because sharpening the tree draws our attention. Remember, I believe that our eyes look to what things we recognize, to people, things that are brighter, things that are sharper. And I had all of those going on in that part of the image. Brighter person that we recognize, sharpness, and something else. Anyway, so I have those things, and every time I've given one of these talks, you've all heard me go through that laundry list of what the unconscious eye does. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to use all of those in that picture. So Donna, what do you think?
I love it. I love what you did, and you pulled out some of the things that I knew were problems with the image, and I didn't even want to try to do anything with it. I just thought, you're the expert on buildings and everything, and I thought that you could show me what to do on that image, and you did.
Thank
You did everything that I was hoping you'd do and more.
So
Yeah, that was great.
I didn't
Good
cover all
image,
the tools,
Donna.
but we covered an awful lot of the tools in doing that
Mhm.
tonight.
We did.
And,
Well, it's a great image. So,
and Milan, I'm sorry, but I have talked my way through almost the entire program without about your gas pumps. So if
That's
it's okay
fine.
with you, I'll do those the next time.